Hello everyone, this is Houndawg, with you again in another historical aircraft from the past 100 years of U.S. Navy Carrier Aviation. Today is 4 November 1967, and we are flying the LTV A-7 Corsair II on board the USS Ranger CV-61.
Radio check, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, radio check. In 1962, the U.S. Navy began developing criteria for a new attack aircraft to replace the aging Douglas A-4 Skyhawk. By the beginning of 1963, the Navy was finalizing requirements for the subsonic attack bomber light attack aircraft designated VAL and capable of accurately delivering 15,000 pounds of conventional weapons over long ranges. To ensure that the new aircraft was cost-effective to produce, maintain, and operate, the Navy included a unique requirement that the aircraft be developed by modifying an existing airframe. The aircraft was also required to be in service no later than 1967. By the end of June 1963, a request for proposal was sent out to the aviation industry, with only 4 companies responding. Douglas Aircraft proposed a larger and more powerful A4D-6 Skyhawk, while Grumman proposed a single-seat version of the A6 Intruder. North American Aviation submitted a TF-30 powered version of the AF-1F Fury, and Ling Timko Vaught's entry was based on a smaller subsonic version of the F-8 Crusader. On 11 February 1964, the Navy awarded an unusual fixed-price contract with penalties to LTV for 1 prototype, 6 flight test machines, and 35 production aircraft under the designation A7A. The contract penalties included $50,000 per day per aircraft for each day inspection trials were delayed, $750,000 if the weight target was missed, and another $750,000 if the maintenance requirements were not met. While the A7 does resemble its big brother, the F-8, it is a totally different aircraft with a shorter but fatter fuselage and a slightly wider wingspan with less sweep and no variable incidence mechanism. The airframe is conventional all-metal semi-monocoque multi-spar structure with stiffened aluminum alloy upper and lower skins. The high-mounted wing has a 5-degree anhedral and a folding outer section with a leading-edge dogtooth. The wing control surfaces include full-span leading-edge flaps, large single-slotted trailing-edge flaps on the inner wing, with spoilers on top and conventional aluminum ailerons on the outer section. The large vertical tail and rudder are swept back 44 degrees, and the one-piece all-moving tail planes are swept back 45 degrees, with a 5-degree dihedral. The tricycle landing gear are anti-skid capable and have single-wheel main mounts that hydraulically retract forward into the fuselage, while the dual-wheel nose strut retracts backward. The A7 has a launch bar on the nose gear and a Stinger-type arresting hook. A large barn door speed brake under the center of the fuselage can be hydraulically extended to a maximum of 60 degrees. The A7 can refuel in mid-air through a retractable probe mounted on the starboard side of the cockpit. The A7 has 2 external store stations on the fuselage sides and 6 stations on the wings. It was capable of carrying up to 20,000 pounds of virtually any type of weapon in the Navy's inventory at that time. Single 20mm Colt Mark 12 cannons with 600 rounds per gun were mounted on each side of the chin air intake. These were later changed to one General Electric M61 Vulcan 6-barrel 20mm Gatling gun mounted on the lower left side of the nose and capable of firing 6,000 rounds per minute. The rapid development of the A-7 broke all records when the first YA-7A prototype rolled out of the factory on 13 August 1965 and first flew on 27 September 1965, less than 18 months from the start of the design. Another 140 aircraft were ordered on 10 November 1965, and the new aircraft was named Corsair II in honor of Valt's famous World War II piston engine fighter. The only contract requirement that LTV missed was the weight limit by 600 pounds. LTV paid the fine, but stood behind their design decision to strengthen the wing to allow the A-7 to carry more weaponry, a decision that proved cheaper in the long run, as later modifications to the wing were not needed. The first A-7s were delivered to Fleet Readiness Squadrons VA-174 and VA-122 starting in September 1966, only 12 months after the Corsair's first flight and well before the Navy's 1967 deadline. Initial carrier qualifications were completed aboard the USS America by 15 November 1966, and the first combat-ready A-7As were delivered to VA-147 in the last quarter of 1967. The first combat mission in Vietnam was launched from the USS Ranger on December 4, 1967. The initial A-7A model was somewhat underpowered and encountered problems with steam ingestion into the air intake during catapult launches. These problems were addressed with modifications to the engines and in later upgraded and more powerful Corsair models. Compared to the A-4 Skyhawk, the A-7 proved to be a better survivor of combat damage with its redundant hydraulic systems and the boron carbide armored seat and cockpit. Maintenance man-hours per flight hour were also an impressive 10 hours, when the norm was around 40 to 50 man-hours per flight hour. The A-7's significantly longer range allowed it to fly missions the smaller A-4 could not. The Corsair was easy to fly and was well liked by its pilots and maintenance personnel, who sometimes affectionately referred to it as the Slough, or short little ugly fella, with the word fella often replaced by a less appropriate word. The Navy's improved and more powerful A-7E and the Air Force's A-7D continued to perform exceptionally well until the end of the Vietnam War in January 1973. Navy and Air Force Corsairs flew 90,180 sorties with 54 losses to enemy action, a loss ratio remarkably lower than the other combat aircraft. Navy squadrons continued to operate the A-7 up to 1987 when the slow transition to F/A-18 Hornets began. The last A-7s were retired in the mid-1990s, with the last A-7E withdrawn from active service in November 1994. A total of 1,569 A-7s were produced in 15 different models and used by the U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, and U.S. Air National Guard, as well as Greece, Portugal, and Thailand. The Corsairs participated in every major military action over 2 decades, including North Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Grenada, Lebanon, Syria, Libya, Korea, Panama, Iraq, Iran, Persian Gulf Tanker War, and finally Desert Storm. In more than 23 years of frontline service between 1967 and 1991, the U.S. Air Force and Navy A-7s logged over 5 million flight hours. The Corsair II proved to be one of the most cost-effective aircraft of the time and one of the most capable, efficient, and accurate attack aircraft.